What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. In today's video, I'm going to go over the producer letter that came out today, December 18th, and it's going to talk a lot about the Isle of Siptah and changes that are coming to that DLC. Now, I'm just going to highlight some things from this letter, but I will link it in the description of this video in case you want to go over and read the entire thing yourself. Jumping right into it, says, first things first, let's chat Isle of Siptah. We released in early access on September 15, and since then, we have been releasing small updates to fix bugs, adjust balance, and address some of the feedback we have received. We have also been reading the reviews players have been posting on Steam, on the forums, and social media. Now, something that I just want to pull out of that part right there, it says, first things first, let's chat Isle of Siptah. And as you read through the entire letter, it feels like the second part of the letter never made it in there. It really is all about Siptah. Yes, they do go on to talk about moving your character between the exiled lands and the Isle of Siptah, but I don't feel like there's really a second part to the letter. Moving on. When we released Isle of Siptah, we knew that we were making some risky decisions and tweaking some of the core mechanics of Conan Exiles that people have come to embrace over the past 4 years. I'm going to stop right there and say, yeah, you did that, and you did it across Isle of Siptah and the exiled lands. This is not something that is specific to the Isle of Siptah, in my opinion. And a couple of examples of those things would be the healing revamp that we got at the launch of Isle of Siptah. Now, the healing revamp is still, in my opinion, up in the air on whether it should have happened or not. You have a lot of people that love it, you have a lot of people that hate it, and you have that group in the middle that are like, you know what, I love Conan Exiles and I'm going to adapt. And as survival game players, we are good at adapting to what comes down the pipe. Now, maybe you could just call it bad timing with the launch of Siptah and the launch of these changes. If they had made healing changes and changes to the stamina system without the Isle of Siptah, then I think it would have been received a little bit differently and not all pegged on the Isle of Siptah. We wouldn't have been sitting there going, well, they're making this change because of the Isle of Siptah, because of the gameplay mechanic and the way that you have to play on the Isle of Siptah. But since they smashed them all together in one package, we really have no choice but to blame all the core mechanic changes on the launch of the Isle of Siptah DLC. And for me, that's a big problem because your gameplay, your core gameplay mechanics should never be developed and decided on because of a DLC. The DLC should be made to fit the gameplay mechanics, not the other way around. It goes on to say, some of the features with the Isle of Siptah have been well received and some of them have not. Below you will see two charts that attempt to categorize the most common comments that we see on reviews. So I'll throw that chart up on the screen so you can see the breakdown real quick. I want to highlight a few things. 21% under miscellaneous said buggy. This is something that Funcom really needs to sort out because they do have a reputation of having a buggy game. And I get a lot of comments on a regular basis about how people have quit playing the game because it still has day one bugs. And honestly, a lot of the times, I'm gonna be seriously honest here, I don't even pay attention to them because that's the whole comment. It still has a day one bugs. Guys, if you're experiencing bugs and issues that have been in there since day one, you need to be able to articulate it beyond the point of it still has day one bugs. You've got to be able to say, this is the exact bug, this is what happens, and you've got to get that back to Funcom. If Funcom isn't seeing those bug reports, beyond saying it still has day one bugs, then they're probably not working on it. Going down the list in the highest percentages goes to the grind for getting thralls, and I gotta agree with this. The grind for getting thralls on Isle of Siptah is absolutely crazy because it's a really long gameplay loop in order to get thralls on the Isle of Siptah right now, because you're doing the vaults, you're getting the Eldarium, you're then going and killing monsters in the storm. Once you're killing monsters in the storm, you're amassing 1,000 essence or whatever they call it in order to get a storm that's going to bring you named thralls. And who wants thralls that aren't named? I mean, you can go to the Wild Surge and get a thrall that's not named, right? And honestly, I don't see how Funcom could not know that people were going to complain about the grind for getting thralls. That's just something they should have known from the beginning, and obviously they were right. 10% of people did not like the grind for getting thralls. Now, I do think they were trying to please a community, and honestly, I think it's a very small community of people that dislike the fact that there's thralls in the game and want a gameplay experience without thralls. And to that community, I have to say this. This is a game you can play however you want. If you want to play the game without thralls, feel free. Be my guest to do that. I personally don't ever use, let's say, a boar for a pet. I don't ever make a boar pet. I don't pick up the piglets and put them in the animal pen and tame them up and go out and have them follow me. For me to say that everybody else in the exiled lands shouldn't have the boar pet because I specifically don't want to use it is something that is just never going to happen, right? So if you don't want to play with thralls, don't play with thralls. Funcom, thralls are a big part of your game. You made it that way from the beginning, and I say this a lot. You need to make sure that you pay attention to your original vision for the game. Don't color outside the box too much. Stay inside that original vision because you have a core community that is still playing your game. I was live streaming yesterday and I asked people how long you've been playing Conan Exiles, and I was surprised by a lot of you guys throwing in hours like 6,000 hours, 4,000 hours, 3,000 hours. Many of you were new and had up to 400 hours already, and that's a lot of time to spend playing a game. So Funcom, remember, you have a core community that is supporting you through this entire process, and they bought into that initial vision for your game, and you need to not lose sight of that. Now, the letter goes on to talk about the different ways that people play the game, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but basically, Conan Exiles in the exiled lands is played however you want. You can play it absolutely however you want, which is one of the things that really drew me to this game in the first place. Additionally, you can add mods that give the game a totally new direction, and that just opens up more options for you to play the game however you want. And I think that's where Funcom missed the mark with the Isle of Siptah, because it really does confine you to playing the Isle of Siptah a very particular way. You have the vaults that you have to run, you have the storm that you have to farm, you have the surges that you have to do, and that restricts players to playing in a certain fashion. It goes on to say, one of the main purposes of having an early access period is precisely so that we can receive feedback from the community and tweak and improve our game as we move towards full launch. Now, this is something that I always commend Funcom on. They do actually listen to the community. Even when you feel like they're not listening, they are listening. They're not always the quickest to turn around and give a response, but they do listen, they do keep track of that, and they do make changes based on that feedback. So what I'm saying is your feedback is very important, and you should be giving them that on a regular basis. Again, don't be negative. Don't go in there with hate and just bash them. Go in respectfully and say, hey, I've got this issue and I want you to take a look at it. Or, hey, I really don't like the way this is turning out, or this change, and just make your mind heard. There's no need to be nasty or anything like that. Just go and let them know what you're experiencing. Now, based on some of the negative feedback that they've received for the Isle of Siptah, they're moving forward with some expansion for the Isle of Siptah. One is that they are introducing many new NPC camps around the map. Now, these NPC camps are going to allow you to thrall hunt in them. To what level, I don't know. Will there be named thralls? I don't know. It doesn't specifically say in this letter if they're going to do that, but they are going to populate the camps with humans who can be captured as thralls. They're going to expand the map to the south with new content and desirable building locations. They're going to tone down the intensity of the storm and make it possible to build within the storm area. Break the links between the vaults, the storm, and the surge. That's pretty vague, and I'm not entirely sure how they're going to break those links, but it sounds like they're going to possibly give us more options for getting Eldarium, or possibly give us more options for getting the essence and summoning the surge. Introduce new activities and new PvE mechanics, and we'll get into that a little bit later on when they explain that a little bit more. Make new and unique placeables for the Isle of Siptah, yay! Introduce a new religion and avatar. Now, this is something that is a pretty big addition to the game, and they don't talk about it more than just saying that they're going to do that. So it'll be interesting to see what the religion and what the avatar is once that finally launches. Now, I've been saying since the beginning of Isle of Siptah, when it first launched in early access, that the tower in the center of the map at some point was going to open and we'd be able to go inside. And here they've said, open a chamber in the Tower of Siptah with great rewards to be found inside. So that'll be interesting, because I'm sure this is going to be kind of the end game content for the Isle of Siptah. That's going to be kind of the big dungeon that you're able to do on the Isle of Siptah. And then the last thing on the list here is allow character transfers between the exiled lands and the Isle of Siptah. This is something that they covered in a live stream a while back, that they were going to make that possible, so that's a cool feature. Moving on to the NPC camps that they're going to be adding to the Isle of Siptah. They say that there's 3 different factions: the Stygians, the Black Corsair, and then the last one, it says, near the Black Tower in the middle of the island, a new and especially large camp is formed. Can those who dwell there be survivors of a devilish sorcery of the Surges? The terrifying experience of being taken from their homes and dragged through the outer dark to end up on the Isle of Siptah must surely have driven them mad, as they now work side by side with the horrific creatures of the storm. Now, the explanation of the third faction sounds very, very mysterious to me, and I'm really excited to see how that actually plays out and what it ends up being once it's in game. Moving on down, they talk about the game loop, the vaults, the storm, and the surge, and basically how players felt that that was a cumbersome game loop. They didn't enjoy it enough. So what they're doing to rectify that situation is, 1, vaults will be rebalanced to level 60 dungeons, each with their own unique rewards. Vaults will still be a source of Eldarium on the Isle, and Eldarium will still be used to delve and craft new recipes. Now, in my time doing research in the dev kit for the Isle of Siptah, I found a lot of weapons in there that just weren't attainable through the actual gameplay loop. So I have a feeling that a lot of those weapons that I've seen in the dev kit that haven't made it to the Isle of Siptah are finally going to make it to those vaults, and we will finally see a bunch of new weapons hit the Isle of Siptah. The storm will become less pervasive, allowing you to build within its area of effect without drawing the attention of creatures of the storm. You may now hunt these horrors of the outer void for new and unique rewards, and they won't be the only source of essence needed to power a surge. So it sounds like building in the Maelstrom will not bring you the elder bosses in the storm anymore, and they're not going to destroy your base if you build in the storm. Additionally, adding other sources for essence is a good thing, and I think that Funcom really needs to not lock that in a time period so that you can decide again how you want to play the game. At this point in time, I am farming, and a little bit later on I'm gonna go get essence, and then I'm gonna go do a vault. These things don't need to be lined up in a time frame on the server's clock. They need to be lined up on a time frame of each player. I want to do this right now, I want to do this a little later, and I want to do this after that. And I don't want to have to time that for when the storm is actually happening on the server. I don't want to have to drop everything that I'm doing to rush out and do the storm. The surge will largely remain the same as it is now, but the rewards will be changed. Completing a surge may reward you with a fragment of power. These fragments can be used inside the chamber in the Tower of Siptah for new and great rewards. The Surge will no longer be the only source of thralls on the island, with the introduction of many NPC camps. So I like the fact that they're linking these two components. I like the fact that you take a resource from one thing and you're able to use it at another thing. They've needed to do this in the exiled lands for a while. I think specifically with the boss creatures that you kill for the parts that you use to make the keystone, where you take your bracelet off. I think those parts are just wasted otherwise in the exiled lands, and I really wish they would follow suit with what they did with the Kin Scourge, where you take the Kin Scourge heart and you're able to make a really powerful weapon, great weapons out of them. I think that once you get the different parts from all the different bosses in the exiled lands, you should be able to use those to make really good weapons. And I think Funcom needs to expand on this, and that's my little tidbit or side track for this video, is that if they can find a way to use those parts, use different things to make different things all over the exiled lands, they're just going to add to the experience. They go on to talk about the size of the Siptah map and how it's going to be about 90% the size of the exiled lands. I believe it's about 75% the size right now, so it's going to grow by about 15%. And they're going to have 3 different biomes: the Ashlands, the Floodlands, and the Savannah. Now here's where they talk about the new PvE mechanic. There will be many desirable base building locations in these lands, plus new NPC cities from 2 new races. Several mysterious black pools can be found in one of these cities, and they will be linked to an all-new PvE mechanic, allowing you to test your mettle in brutal fights against monstrous opponents. We are also planning several new activities which encourage exploration of the Isle of Siptah and the opportunity to free human NPCs from camps, making them your followers. So number 1, the black pools that allow you to test your mettle in brutal fights. This sounds like some sort of horde mode where you can go in and see how many levels of monstrous opponents you can defeat before you're either wiped out or you decide to leave. I think that's a really cool idea, and I'm looking forward to partaking in those PvE events. But it goes on to say there'll be an opportunity to free human NPCs from camps, making them your followers, which is an interesting way to word it in my opinion. And I feel like this may be the start of some little mini quests inside Conan Exiles, where you may have like a job board or something that you go to, and maybe there's a missing persons report, and so that report then leads you to go somewhere on the Isle of Siptah and rescue this NPC, and when you rescue that NPC, it becomes your follower. It would be a really cool mechanic if you didn't actually have to put that person on the Wheel of Pain, if you just rescued them and they're all of a sudden like, hey, I'm indebted to you and I'm gonna follow you everywhere that you go. A new religion with its own unique weapons, tools, priest outfit, avatar, and altars is coming. Its avatar is a horrific monster like no other, sure to give those with a faint heart or a certain phobia nightmares, and my guess is this is going to be some sort of spider-based avatar. We'll have to see when it comes out, but the fact that they said faint of heart or a certain phobia leads me to believe that it's probably a spider avatar. Now this is really interesting. In addition, Purges, like those you can find in the exiled lands with large groups of enemies attacking your base, are coming to the Isle of Siptah. Why is this interesting to me? Number 1, we have the Surge already on the Isle of Siptah. Now we have the Purge coming to the Isle of Siptah. We also have the Maelstrom. These are big events that happen on the Isle of Siptah. The Maelstrom in and of itself at times can really lag a server if you have a lot of people engaging with a lot of the monsters, which they may be toning down. I'm not 100% sure if they're toning that down or if the Maelstrom is still going to be a very active event. However, adding the Purge to it means that we add another layer of potential lag to the server. So if you have a Purge going and you have the Maelstrom going at the same time and you're loading all those extra NPCs onto the map, I wonder how that's going to affect the server performance when those mechanics are fighting each other for memory and processing speed and everything like that. That'll be an interesting mechanic to see how it plays out from a standpoint of just server stability in and of itself. However, I'm going to sidetrack on the Purges to give you my personal opinion on Purges now. I really don't see a point. I don't see the reward that Purges used to give you. So when you got a Purge before, you were really looking for that named NPC to come in the Purge, and that named NPC would have a specific recipe that you could then craft certain weapons or certain armors or the legendary weapon repair kits. Now, with the changes that they've made to kind of the crafting system and the thrall crafting, that's just not there. So the only reward that you get from a Purge now is being able to say that you defeated it and then whatever resources came with that Purge. So if you got, say, a Purge of crocodiles, you defeated a Purge of crocodiles, you got a legendary key from the boss, but other than that, you got bones, fangs, and reptile hide in that Purge. And I just don't feel like they're rewarding like they used to be. So the addition of the Purges for me to the Isle of Siptah is just kind of meh. I'm really not excited about it. I'm not necessarily unexcited about it. I just feel like the Purges are not as rewarding as they used to be. Wrapping it all up, they say, and finally, we know that many of you have been asking for a way to transfer your characters between the exiled lands and the Isle of Siptah. We are happy to say that we are working on letting you do so. A character transfer system will be introduced during the Isle of Siptah early access to allow you to use your favorite character on the map that you choose to play on. Wrapping this all up, I want to go back up to their review breakdown, and I want to highlight the fact that 21% of the complaints were that it was buggy. Now, as we went through this entire list, there was very little talked about buggy. There was a lot talked about new this, we're changing this is how this is going to work, this is how that's going to work. And that's all good and dandy. You can see from the list, nobody complains about the amount of content that Funcom adds to the game. The amount of content that Funcom adds to the game is well received. We like getting new shiny toys or new shiny experiences. However, I do think that it's important that Funcom does address the 21% of the reviews that say it's buggy and make sure that they are spending enough time on that when the Isle of Siptah comes out of early access and goes to live, it is a stable gameplay experience, and I think it needs to be stable in the exiled lands as well, because as you pick up new players, they're going to play both the exiled lands and the Isle of Siptah. Additionally, as players return and check it out, they're going to want to see that those quote-unquote day one bugs have been fixed. So very important, Funcom, that you focus on getting the bugs fixed for the game. In addition to the amount of content that you're putting out, you do a really good job of putting out new content, keeping us with new and shiny toys and experiences, but you've got to focus on the bugginess as well and get that ironed out. In closing, I think we're further out now in seeing the Siptah DLC go from early access to full launch. I was expecting a January, February launch to consoles and to full-fledged DLC, but I'm thinking February, March at the earliest before the consoles see it or that we see it come out of early access. That's just my thought process based on the amount of changes and the information that's in this letter alone. But that's my opinion. You can leave your opinion in the comment section below. And that's all I have for this video, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. You can click one of the other videos coming up on the screen to watch next. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. I'll catch you next time. Peace. The whack moments in this video were sponsored by my legendary supporters. Thank you very much. If you'd like to sponsor a future whack moment, you can click the button below that says join. That'll give you all the details. I'd like to thank all my subscribers for their continued support, likes, comments, and general awesomeness. If you're not subscribed, you can start your free trial today and cancel at any time. And if you're not finished watching, there's 2 videos to pick from.